as we handle conflict, our job is to glorify God, get the log out of our own eye, gently restore each other, and then go and be reconciled.
Welcome to the Holy and Healthy Podcast. We are so glad you are listening. It is our prayer that this content is helpful to you. If it is, please follow us, leave us a review, share this with others that you'd like to join our community. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Well, hey, good morning, Caleb.
Good morning, Hunter.
I had an incredible morning because something different happened.
Do tell.
So the other day, I had this coffee from Black Rock, and I didn't know, never had it, but we got this like $2 a drink thing, like a punch card. So you go to Black Rock and you get literally whatever is on the card for $2.
Any drink on the card?
Yeah, so they had like Fuels, Blondies, all that stuff, like all the things that Carly and I like.
Perfect.
But we kind of ran, after you do it once, punch card's done, and you don't get it again for $2.
And let me guess, you're the Blondie guy?
No, more of the energy drink guy, which I need to get off. But we went, and on the card there was this thing called the Blackout. Have you ever had that? Dude.
It sounds intense.
It does sound intense, but it's not. I thought it was going to be like a black coffee with like a lot of crap thrown in it. That would be really good.
Yeah, like a lot of espresso and more like caffeine. And
something that makes you black out.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. The blackout drink is like a latte with chocolate milk in it. So instead of regular milk, it's chocolate milk.
Okay.
I had it. It was incredible.
Oh.
It had like hazelnut in it too.
Ooh.
It was really good. So this morning,
oh no,
Carly and I made one.
You did.
Dude. Driving here on the way to work was probably the best drive I've had in a long time. I was...
Because you were drinking it, or it was already gone?
I mean, it was pretty much already gone by the time I got in the car anyway, just because I drank so much of it as I walked out.
Did you talk about it the whole drive here?
I mean, no.
Okay.
But
That's something you would do.
Talked about the drink?
Yeah, the whole drive. You would do that. Yes, you would.
I mean, I would. No, but was fantastic. So if you're making your coffee in the morning, I know you're more of a black coffee guy.
Yep.
Pour over very, very
yeah, a little artsy.
Particular.
Yeah, whatever.
With your coffee, you weigh it and all that stuff. It's very cute.
Yeah.
But if you ever wanted to try a latte with chocolate milk in it, you should do it. It's very good.
All right. Chocolate milk in my latte.
It's very good.
Would you recommend it to the listeners?
I would, for sure.
All right,
now,
cool.
I wouldn't do full chocolate milk because it's so sugary, but
Ooh.
we kind of blended regular milk and chocolate milk.
Oh, okay. So it
was
like
a little bit less, like, sugary.
Like a gray out.
Gray out. Yeah.
All right, we should move on.
Wasn't a midnight black. It was more of a, like, that faded black on T-shirts that's like, it's gray, but they call it like vintage black.
Yeah.
It's like, just call it gray. Yeah. So thank you for letting us talk a little bit about that.
I'm always down for some good coffee talk.
Just anyone should be.
Yeah. So what's on the docket for today?
Docket. That's a fun word.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to stir up some conflict between us.
Oh.
Because that's what we're talking about today.
Conflict.
I figured it would be better if we just had some in-person conflict real quick, and we should just resolve it but we don't have time.
Yeah, well, okay.
Well,
no, I'm not aware of any conflict, so
we don't have any. As of right now, we don't have any. There is some conflict going around the space as we are recording this currently. We're recording this in, what is today? May 13th of 2024.
May 13th, 2024.
In the last week, there has been some pretty popular conflict between two rap artists named Drake and Kendrick Lamar.
That's true.
Which
I don't know anything about it. So if we're going to talk about it, you start.
Okay, so let me give like a quick synopsis.
Okay.
Because I don't want to take too long.
Yeah,
but
overview. Go.
Drake makes this song.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot prior to this. Now, I'm not a massive fan of either side. I've just been curious. So Drake makes this song with J. Cole. And in the song, he says there's a big three. And he says it's J. Cole, Kendrick, and me.
Okay.
So, big three rappers. If you like rap, I mean, you probably have your own big three or whatever. Kendrick then drops a line on someone else's song that says there's no big three, there's only a big me.
Oh.
And so he's going at Drake's song. Dude, it starts this massive
Wait,
thing.
was Drake being nice?
I think, yeah, and he
Like
had,
acknowledging that
from
they're
what I
all great
read,
rappers.
yeah, from what I read, he was trying to get Kendrick actually on the song with J. Cole to have like something cool in the rap industry happen, but Kendrick said no.
No.
But now he's like, nah, there's only a big me. And yeah, devolves into this whole massive song after song after diss track after diss track after diss track, calling each other out. Like Kendrick is saying, like having all these allegations against Drake being like just an awful guy, and um, like Drake coming back at Kendrick being like, "Bro, Taylor Swift made you who you are." All this stuff,
Dang.
and there's some intricacies that we won't talk about live on the air because that's not what this
Yeah.
this is about.
But
But
conflict.
very much so.
And they're
A
handling it
very,
by writing songs.
yeah,
Wow.
very
All right.
public conflict.
Yeah.
Um, but conflict is never comfortable. It's never easy, and
Correct.
it's also like. But I think the fun part about conflict is when it's not ours, we really enjoy it.
Oh yeah. It's like you want to sit down, grab your bag of popcorn, and just watch everything
I mean,
unfold.
that's why there's so many reality TV shows.
Yeah.
That's why the Kardashians are as popular
Yeah.
as they are. Real, but I think the cool thing about conflict, I think, points out there is something real going on.
Yeah.
Like between you and another person, there is legitimately something there
Yeah.
that's actually happening.
Yeah.
We
And
all
at the
love
end
to
of the
see.
day, conflict is not inherently wrong.
No, it's not.
It's actually incredibly beneficial.
I agree.
But we've seen conflict done so wrong for so long that a lot of people, and honestly, probably myself included, like I want to avoid conflict.
For sure.
And that tends to be the natural response to anything that could be conflicting between
Mhm.
two people. Have you ever heard of, well, I don't know why I'm asking you if you ever heard of Strength Finders.
Yeah.
So it's this personality test, if you don't know what it is, and it kind of lays out what are some of your key strengths. And one of mine is harmony. So,
Mm.
and basically what that means is I want to keep the peace.
Yeah.
And so conflict, I will engage in conflict, and I know what a good conflicting like engagement between two people should look like and everything.
Hmm.
But in general, I want to avoid it.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably, if you're listening and you resonate with that, that's probably where you stand. It's just like, I want to just not be around it because it's uncomfortable.
Mhm.
It's tense. It's you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know where people's emotions are going to lie. We all also intuitively know that conflict involves two people. So very rarely is it one person's fault. So at some point, like there's got to be I own my stuff, you own your stuff. But nobody wants to own their stuff. And I think that's when the sparks fly and we all are like, oh, that's crazy. Nobody's owning their stuff and they're just going to get mad at each other. But then when it's us, it's like, oh, I don't want to deal with that.
Oh yeah. And it's way easier to just kind of push it off and hope it kind of resolves itself out.
Oh, yeah.
But it never does.
Oh, it never does.
It always gets worse.
Absolutely.
But I like what you said about conflict is it's not doesn't have to be bad. Like it can be really good.
Yeah.
And I would say when you read scripture and then just in experiences in my own life, conflict has actually created, I think, probably some of the best moments with my friendships and relationships.
Yeah.
Like it brings out this level of intimacy with people that you don't get if you don't have conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you assume that you're going to be super tight and never have any issues with someone, that's just, at best, you're being naive.
It's a movie.
And that doesn't really make sense. And some of the closest, tightest relationships in your life are always on the other side of working through conflict,
Mhm.
differences, things you disagree on, or things you need to talk about, or something you didn't like that that person did. And being able to talk about that is amazing. And it brings the relationship, like you said, to a whole nother level. But if we just avoid conflict all the time, odds are your relationship with that person will stay pretty surface level or it'll end really soon.
Yeah.
Because if you're not going to engage in the conflict or the thing you need to talk about that's going to be tense or whatever, then you start to run out of things to talk about because you can't get past that one thing that you're not willing to get past.
Yeah.
So it makes the relationship stagnant and nobody likes that. So one person's going to bowing out. So conflict really can be the thing to propel any kind of relationship, whether it's a friendship or like a dating relationship or a working relationship.
a family relationship to a whole nother level.
Yeah. And I think with conflict, it kind of sits, especially with the more. I think it's usually at work. It can be easier at work because depending on where you work, because like you don't see them when you leave, like you're not
Yeah.
super close with them or connected. But when it comes to like relational things with family and
Mm-hmm.
friends and stuff like that, and I think especially people that you're not super close to, but people that almost you respect in a certain way
Mm-hmm.
or want to have a relationship with, when you have conflict with them, like if you bring it up, I think a lot of people would love to talk about their conflict with
Mm-hmm.
them, but the response that they've gotten in the past or from other people when they brought conflict up is something that they kind of hold against everyone else of
Oh
like,
yeah.
no, I'm just going to hold this. But I
Yeah.
think conflict feel like is this biggest problem, but I actually think not having conflict and not resolving it and trying to figure it out always ends up being the bigger problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right, because learned experience.
Yeah.
So we tend to take our life experiences and we project them onto our life and
Yeah.
whatever's in front of us. So yeah, one conflict goes bad. Like you're at one job and you confront your boss about something and you think you did it to the best of your ability and you were able to maintain your emotions and all some of the stuff we're going to talk about. And it just went south.
Mhm.
And then you get a new job and you have this boss and you're like, "Oh my goodness, I feel some conflict coming or there's something I need to say or confront." And you will associate the experience you had with your previous boss with what could potentially happen with your new boss. And if that was bad enough, you're going to convince yourself that's just not worth it.
Even if they're an incredible person that you're working
Yeah,
for
yeah,
now. Yeah.
yeah, which is fascinating. But I totally get it because I'm a person too. So,
Yeah. So as we talk about this, let's kind of figure out almost like a roadmap when conflict comes. What's a way that we need to address it? I was texting you last night before this, and uh, this like big idea of conflict kind of came to me. The idea that conflict either leads to resolution or revolution.
mm,
That it's either going to lead you to a
mm,
place of
that's good.
absolute resolution together and you're actually stronger and better. If you see any detail about the gym or even like bones that break, this resistance and how to build back up, it always makes you stronger going forward.
Hmm.
Like I don't think anyone's ever gone to the gym consistently and been weaker.
Yeah.
And like when bones go back, they're stronger. So there has to be some sort of conflict can be really good. But if you don't address conflict and you let it go too long, that's when you end up having these like revolting moments
Yeah.
against each other and it becomes really bad. Which I think is why in Matthew chapter 18, it talks very clearly about how we should be handling conflict when it comes up. So I'm going to read this passage in Matthew 18, verses 15 through 17, and then let's just kind of chat through thoughts on it and then anything that you have. Matthew 18, verse 15 says this: If any believer sins against you, go privately and point out the offense. If the other person listens and confesses it, you have won that person back. But if you are unsuccessful, take one or two others with you and go back again, so that everything you say may be confirmed by two or three witnesses. If the person still refuses to listen, take your case to the church. Then, if he or she won't accept the church's decision, treat that person as a Karen. That doesn't say that. Treat that person as a pagan or a corrupt tax collector. So there's three stages here: going privately, taking a couple of the people, and then going to the church. Caleb, what are your thoughts on that? Let's kind of chat through that for the rest of our time.
Matthew 18,
Matthew 18, whatever we got.
conflict, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, passage has been the thing because we work in the church world.
Mm-hmm.
It has been the thing that is just so easy to go to and be like, this is how we should handle conflict. And on paper, and when you read it, you're like, okay, this adds up. It makes sense.
So easy,
So
right?
easy.
Yeah.
But yet, it's not. And it rarely happens this way. And there's just so much that goes into it. But if you look at the principles in it, it is a really good way to go about things. So if you're listening to this and you're a follower of Christ and you've given your life to Him and you said, you know what, I want to live the life that Christ has for me and do the things He did, this is part of it. If you haven't and that's not you, then this is at best for you really good insight into how you could go about some things where it is likely to go better than it is to go worse.
Yeah.
So it's good principle thing. So either way, wherever you're at on your life with Jesus and following Him. This is just incredible wisdom to embark on and to try to practice yourself. But I like the beginning. So if another believer sins against you, so this message is primarily geared towards believer to believer.
Yes.
So follower of Christ to follower of Christ.
Yeah.
And you can pick up on that right in the beginning. Go privately and point out the offenses. So it makes sense. If you've wronged me and I believe you sinned against me, then I should bring that to you.
Yeah.
And say, hey, Hunter, this happened. And I felt like you wronged me. Or something along those lines. Say something like that. And just do that privately and see where it goes. Odds are, if you don't come hot-headed, full of anger, and you just want to destroy this person, and you're coming with trying to understand, seek resolution, not revolution,
Mm-hmm.
then most likely there will be, wow, I didn't realize that. Thank you for telling me. Will you forgive me? Or something along those lines. I don't know. Something in there is likely to happen, but it all depends on the approach, and that's something I've always cared a lot about is your approach. What do you, in your experience, working with young adults, working in your own life, looking at conflict, observing conflict, how has approach been something that you've noticed or looked at, things like that?
Yeah, it sets the entire tone for the conversation. Like I've had conversations with young adults that I've had to, bring some things up. But I think the biggest thing that I've seen work when it comes to not only those kind of conversations, but especially with me, is when I know that they care more about me than they do actually the problem.
Yep, that's good.
And when someone's approached me with like hey, like, I'm also really, really thankful when someone's just direct and clear and doesn't try to just like, hey, how are you doing? How's life been recently? All this stuff. It's more like, hey, I really need to talk to you about something. Here's what happened. I'd love to try to figure this out because I care about you. I think being like really caring about the person, and seeing like, oh, there is an issue here, and I want to address it before it gets bigger. And then also too, I think I don't think it's something we even do great in the church, but also as Christians, I don't think we do a great job of it as well. I think we like to call things like, "Hey, I felt like you did this to me and it hurt." And I get that, and I think we should say that, but I don't think we do a fantastic job as believers as calling out the things that are wrong and actually calling them sin. Like, hey, this isn't just wrong because like you did this to me and it made me feel awful.
Yeah.
Like, this is something that I know because of a follower of Jesus, and also because I know you're a follower of Jesus. We're called to a certain standard of living.
Yeah.
This is not just wrong against me. This is sinful. And how do you have, like you said, Matthew 18 is a great principle, but it's not necessarily easy to do. And the conversations where I've had, now I don't have many of them because I don't think a lot of Christians and even pastors are bold enough to say that's sin. And for some reason nowadays, I think we just have a trouble with that.
Yeah.
But the best conversations I've had with pastors and people that have talked to me have been the ones where you go, hey, like, this isn't just wrong, Hunter. This is a sin.
Yeah.
And Pastor Daniel Golding, our teaching pastor, he did that with me when I first came on as an intern. He was talking about my pride. He's like, it's not just a problem because you think highly of yourself or you're confident or you have, certain beliefs or things about you. This is a sin issue. And if you don't take care of the sin issue, it's going to lead to a lot of other things. And so I think addressing it, what's the root cause? What's our sin? And then bringing that out. So that's been the two best approaches I've seen, is one, caring more about me as a person, and then actually addressing what's wrong. It's really not the fruit of it. It's the root of the sin.
Yeah.
And so trying to get to, not to over spiritualize it, but to make it real.
Yeah.
I think like this is completely wrong against the Bible. Now have that conversation with a coworker and see how it goes.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy, but
there's a spiritual side to it.
For sure.
And then there's And that's for like believer to believer.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the just conflict.
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to have this conflict, or I need to figure out how to have this conversation. That's a common language that I've heard repeatedly is I need to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Which
You do.
in tone implies, okay, this is going to be a tense conversation that might involve conflict. So what do I do then? When I know I need to have a conversation with someone, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that is very common language, at least where we work.
Yeah.
Is someone will be saying something to someone, and they're like, I need to have a conversation. It's almost like they realized it. I need to have a conversation because they know something has festered in their heart.
Yeah.
That if they don't go talk about it, then it's going to sit there and it's going to be a problem.
For sure.
So conflict resolution, going after, and doing that. I love that. I love that calling out sin, calling out what it is.
Yeah.
Getting to the root of it.
And I think even before you have to get there, a lot of our conflict, I would probably say 95% of our conflict is probably wrapped up in miscommunication.
Oh, totally.
Like, it's probably not that person actually hurt you like they meant to.
Yeah.
A lot of people's intention isn't actually to come at you.
Yeah.
Like, we live in a cancel culture where we feel like it is.
Yep.
But I think a lot of the time, like, people's intent is not necessarily to make you feel awful. Now, if it is,
That's a whole nother thing.
Probably should get around better people and try and figure out what to do.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it's wrapped up in miscommunication. So
absolutely.
I think coming to someone with the heart of, hey, the question I love to ask is, hey, I noticed this, or I heard this, or you said this to me, you did this to me, kind of calling out the situation and just saying, like, was that your intention?
Mm-hmm.
And just asking them, like, did you
Yeah.
intend for this, like, to happen?
Yeah.
Because their response is probably going to be, no, I didn't mean for that.
Yeah.
Conflict resolved.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
taken care of. But if the conversation goes like, yeah, I actually did. And it's like, okay, then the steps of conflict resolution, I think, start to come out.
So when I think of this linearly, I
Yeah.
think about, okay, there's this whole process to conflict.
Yeah.
And usually it starts with something happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go, oh, like that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've been wronged. Or they treated me poorly. Or something. Like you were wronged, someone was wronged, you're not happy with the situation or how something was handled, whatever your thing is that you're like, I need to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's gonna like blow up in my heart and it's just gonna be really bad for me because I'm just gonna sit on it. Then what?
Yeah.
What do I do to prepare myself to go have this conversation? There's got to be steps that maybe I should take mentally, or is it, man, I'm upset, I'm just gonna bust into their office or their room or go to their, get them on the phone and.
I mean, you could try. I don't know how that's gonna work.
Yeah.
I think.
So what do you think a good approach is?
If we take this idea that conflict either leads to resolution or revolution, I got this like word picture in my head of as soon as conflict happens, it's almost like you put into your GPS, like, all right, you put GPS conflict into your GPS and it's taking you down a route.
Yeah.
But the problem is you're gonna get to a place which is like that part where you go like, oh, I need to have a conversation. You have a fork in the road where I'm gonna choose the road to resolution
Mhm.
or the road to revolution. Revolution is not doing anything about it and letting it sit, but you're going to get to this really destructive place. The resolution is deciding I'm actually going to go after this and resolve it,
Mhm.
which I would believe as Christians and people who want to do the right thing, that is actually what we're called to do,
Mhm.
is to have these conversations. But I think the first part is literally just realizing if I have this conversation, it's going to lead to resolution. In Matthew 18, it does lead to resolution. Even the last part,
Mhm.
where then you decide, like, this is not someone I need to spend time with. That is still resolution.
Yeah.
But if you don't do anything about it, you're going to go down this path that is
Mhm.
wrong. So I think the first part is realizing conflict is going to happen and I need to do something about it. Having the wherewithal and the mindset of doing that.
Yeah.
Then I would say the mindset you have to have is that this is a moment for both of us, both parties, to be able to glorify God with our actions.
That's good.
To be able to say, like, conflict can be a moment with me and someone else where we actually sit and we realize our actions in our life is to glorify God.
Yeah.
Now, this takes a lot on you
Mhm.
to come humbly and say, like, I'm going to take my ego out of it
Mm-hmm.
and realize that the biggest mission that I have is to glorify God.
Yeah.
So this conversation, this moment, we can actually glorify God.
That's good. So
Yeah.
basically, we're looking at if you don't go into this, if you don't go into the conflict with resolution between you and that person as the end goal, you probably shouldn't even go.
Yeah, because if you flip that idea, John Gordon just put out this new book about how to handle conflict, and in there he talks about this idea of small ego and big mission.
Okay.
So if you come in with this small ego,
Yeah.
I'm like, I know I'm not perfect, but I know the big mission is what's important. That
Yeah.
works in an organizational standpoint. For us, our big mission is to glorify God with our lives and to honor each other, right?
Yep.
I would say you can't do both of those and separate them. You have to do them together. Glorifying God is honoring each other, and honoring each other is also glorifying God. So that's the big mission. You can't come in with a big ego.
Mm-hmm.
If your mission at the end of this is to be right, then you might win an argument, but you won't win the person. And at the end of the day, what's the main goal? It's to be right with the person.
Mm-hmm.
It's to win that relationship back.
Yeah.
So if you want to handle now you can handle conflict and take these steps and always be on the right side of conflict, but you might not be right in it. So if you want to do it right and you want to do it, I feel like the way that God's asked us to do is come in with this idea of, I know that I'm not perfect.
Yep.
And I'm going to come in here and say there's something bigger at hand, and that we are brothers or sister in Christ that I'm sitting across from to have this conversation, which is really the idea of you got to take the log out of your own eye. Like, that's another Bible verse as well. Like, you can't see a speck in someone else's eye and try to fix it with a log in your own.
Yep.
One, a large log in your eye is going to create distance regardless. You can't help someone.
Yeah.
If a log is sticking out of your eye, it's going to cause a lot of problems.
Yeah. Obviously, the whole airplane thing, like put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on anybody else, that kind of thing.
Which makes sense until it happens,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, I've never been in that situation.
Oh, me neither.
But naturally, our instinct is going to be put it on yourself.
Yeah.
Which is why they say it at every flight, is to put it on someone else and then work on yours.
Wait, no. They say put it on yourself.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, put it on yourself and then help the person next to you.
Why in the world did I think it was opposite?
I don't know.
Yeah, you would literally die.
Yeah. So the whole point is like, get yourself good, like take the log out of your own eye, similar to what you're saying, and then go.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So
you had a great metaphor, and then I messed
you're
it up.
good. It's all
because of
good.
You see, this is why I should probably listen and not be listening to my music when they start talking. I don't think I've heard one of their spiels in like 5 years.
We could totally talk about how airplane mode is a scam, but we're not going to. So I love that coming into it with this a mindset that, okay, we're going to resolve this. I care about the person, they care about me, and believe that. Like, if you don't believe that, if you do not believe they care about you, then you're probably past step one. You probably already had conflict before, and like they blew you off, didn't care, whatever. But generally this is good.
Yeah.
Go into it with the assumption that all is good. Our home group, we just went through this thing on community, and we were kind of like trying to figure out what it looks like to be in community. And one of the things that was like one of the first weeks, I think it was like week 2 or whatever, and we started talking about, hey, how we address each other in this group is going to matter. And because we're a group of different people coming from different lives, different backgrounds and all of that stuff, history, that there's a good chance someone's going to do something that annoys someone.
Oh, yeah.
And we were looking through this like guide, and it was basically telling us, hey, someone bothers you. Maybe it's just like a little bit of like their personality that just like rubbed you the wrong way. And if we're not careful, we'll take that and we'll assume the worst about a person. Maybe they said something to you short and quick, or maybe they didn't invite you to something and blah, 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 blah. And you just like, you feel like it's this personal attack.
Yeah.
And basically what this was telling us is we tend to lean towards making the bad assumption, but we need to be aware of that and start to go, I don't think that was intentional. Some of the stuff you mentioned.
Yeah.
So when you're gearing up for a conversation that is conflict, then assuming the person had it out for you is a really bad way to go into it.
For sure.
So go, like, when that thought comes in, This is your red flag. This is your, man, alarms are going off. You think they did it on purpose and they are out to get you. No. Odds are they're not.
Yeah.
It's very unlikely. Most people are too selfish and self-centered to even like think that way.
Yeah.
It was not intentional. So make the assumption that I don't think they meant to do this. And because of that, it makes it a lot easier to go in the conversation because now you're assuming that they didn't mean to do it. You're going to tell them that they did do it. And if they didn't mean to do it, they're going to want to make it right.
Yeah.
And so all's good. In Matthew 18 is that, and you won the person back.
Yes.
You've saved that relationship from dying because of unresolved conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And so it used things. I love this. I'm like a language person, and it talks about saying things like, instead of saying something like, "Why did you ignore my calls?" Consider saying, "I'm puzzled as why you didn't return my call." Now I know that's funny, and our whole home group kind of laughed at the word "puzzled," and now it's a joke.
You
And
do love words
I
like
know,
that, though.
but it brings an awareness to, I'm trying to understand. Why did you ignore my calls? Is aggressive. I'm puzzled. I'm confused. Help me understand why you didn't return my call. Is understanding. I want to know. You still know I'm hurt, but I'm trying to understand why that action came about.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have the freedom to go, man, I'm sorry, I totally forgot. It wasn't on the forefront of my mind. I saw that you called and then got busy with XYZ. And maybe I think my natural tendency is to then like think they're just making excuses. Like, I'm really bad at this. I'm convinced that someone's just making an excuse when they say stuff like that. But I know that's a red flag in my mind and need to be aware of that.
Because that goes against assuming the positive
Absolutely. So even in their response, I think you've got to be able to take a step back and go, okay, I have every reason to believe and trust this person. And I assume the best about them. So their response to why this happened, helping me understand, is right. It's not a lie. And that, I don't know, to me that takes like a lot of practice and, self-discipline.
Well, it does, because it's hard to feel wronged in love at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I think what you're taking this all down to is this idea that, I think it's 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter. It says love hopes all things and believes all things.
Yep.
Like, it talks about how love assumes this positive intent of other people. Like, we're going to hope that they did this. We're going to believe that they did this in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough to do when you've been in a moment of feeling wronged.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest part with conflict is if conflict never affected our personal emotions, we'd be able to do it really easy. But because conflict is so personal, it's hard to remove our feelings. But I think if we can, like you said, it's hard to do this because you feel like they might be making excuses. But for some reason, there's a feeling in there of you, I think, because you feel personally wronged in a way where it's like nothing's going to make that up unless you do it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think if we can take our feelings as more like information, like your feelings are informing you that something is wrong.
Yeah.
But not letting those be formative of us. Like forming us to actually act this certain way. Let it inform, like, hey, there's something going on, but not letting that drive us. Let's let those feelings actually realize, oh, this is a warning sign to say we're at the fork in the road now.
Yep.
Now, our feelings of letting us drive go to revolution, but if we let our feelings inform, we can actually go down the road of restoration and resolution.
Yep. So you come in with small ego, big mission.
Yeah.
And you've kind of looked at that and be like, hey, resolution is the key here. I want this to go well. I'm not here to belittle this person because they hurt me, or somehow this confrontation is me to make them feel bad, but I want resolution. So what would be next? So you get in there, you've come with the right intent. Now what? I'm face to face with the person that I have an issue with, conflict with, whatever. What needs to happen?
It's got to be there's got to be a next level of feeling like, okay, now this is on me to restore it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just assume. Now you can assume positive intent, but you can't assume that the relationship has now been restored.
Mm-hmm.
I think again, realizing that you as well aren't perfect. I think you've got to lay out some ground rules now from what just happened to now how you're feeling. Let's figure out how do we like gently restore this together. And I think some of the ground rules I would say you got to add is like figuring out for you, how did this come about?
Mm-hmm.
How did this happen? Was it a call that someone else made when you weren't in the room?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it a conversation that you had? Or a snarky remark or a sarcastic comment that went sideways? Like figuring out what really happened, how did it get there? Track it back, figure out how did we get to the place we're at today? And then from there be like, how can we make sure that this doesn't happen again?
Mm-hmm.
How can we make sure that we're on the same page going forward, that this isn't going to happen? And if it does, like, are we going to be able to have this kind of conversation again?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think you have to be able to first, like, these ground rules, like let's take it back to the original moment that it happened. Because if you get the feelings out of the way and you're like, hey, did you mean to do that? And they're like, no, 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 not at all. It's like, awesome. Like, thank you. But let's bring some practical to this. Like, how did it happen, though? So
Mm-hmm.
we can make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's good.
But
So
but
understanding.
yeah. But then restoring each other in a way of like, hey, like, I love you. I'm so thankful for you. Saying I love you to a coworker might be weird, but
Yeah, yeah.
but getting to this point of like, hey, I want you to know that like I don't see you any differently now than maybe before. Like we're okay. Or
Mm-hmm.
if you do and it doesn't go well, like you have to have that kind of conversation as well. But to be able to gently restore someone saying like, hey, we're we're on the same level now if conflict goes well. Like we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
I want to like affirming them, affirming the conversation, thanking them because it's actually hard to be humble and take this kind of criticism in conflict, but acknowledging the situation in a really really gentle way, restoring your relationship again with your words and then your actions, I think is the that's what I would say is the next step. And
Mm.
then after that, go and actually live out what you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
Figure out the next step forward and then actually go and do it. That's what I would say.
That's good.
It's kind of like how you take those conversations and run with them.
Yeah. So I've noticed in conflict, usually at some point there's a reason for emotions to get high,
Yeah.
intense per se, and that's usually when it goes awry. From what I've experienced, the person who, if you think about it like this, the person who maintains their composure, that they walked into conflict with resolution mindset. They know what they're going to say. They've already processed through the raw emotion that was experienced, because usually when we're wrong, there's like raw emotion that comes in, and that's really good. Like it helps us
Yeah.
understand who we are, what's going on, what happened, all of that. But once you get that under control, you're able to go into this. But oftentimes, you go into conflict and someone is not level-headed. Someone is fuming. Someone's emotional level is not ready for this confrontation.
Yeah.
And usually, in my experience, the person who does that ends up walking out of the conversation or the conflict just absolutely defeated.
Mm.
Like there's no going back,
Yeah.
basically. And so, what do you have to say to that about someone's emotional state when it comes to conflict?
Yeah. Being self-aware of someone else's place is tough. Trying to discern how they're doing. Yeah, dude, that's the tough part when it comes to someone who will feel defeated. I think it's hard to know that if it's your first conversation with them.
Hmm. I'm talking like you go into a conversation and it starts off, everybody's tone is good,
Mm,
it's chill, but then it escalates
mm.
to yelling and
Oh, okay.
frustration, and your emotional state is just absolutely out of control.
Oh, so you start feeling that way.
Either one.
Mm.
But if you're the one going into the conflict, basically what I'm saying, if you're the one who wants to address it, you're the one going in, and typically that's what we're going to be talking about here. If someone approaches you with conflict, we can definitely talk about that too. But if you're going in conflict, do not be the one to lose your emotions.
Yeah, you gotta handle
Do
those.
not
You
lose
gotta
control.
manage.
Yeah,
And I would say there's not even like a solving issue to them. You gotta manage them,
yeah.
and you gotta be able to put those kind of on the back burner because those aren't actually important right now.
Those raw emotions of like if you think you're gonna go in there and they could say something that is going to make your blood boil, and all you're going to do is yell at them and punch them or something, or in your head you're literally thinking about just decking them in the face, then don't go into it.
Yeah, you gotta give some time and some prayer
Yeah,
to being able
absolutely.
to control those emotions.
Yeah, conflict never goes well if your emotional state is unstable.
Oh no, because then you're trying to win a battle.
Yeah.
Not again, you're winning a battle, you're winning an argument, but you're not winning a person. And at the end of the day, that's what the whole passage is talking about:
Yeah.
winning someone back.
Yep.
Man, with honest, I guess the best illustration I can give is with Carly. But when I'm in a conversation with Carly and we get into some kind of conflict or an argument, when I find myself getting into those defeated moments, or when I see her getting into those defeated moments, it's usually because one of us has gotten defensive.
Yeah.
And when we were talking um, the other day, I kind of got into this realization that I only get defensive, one, if I'm caught,
Hmm.
or two, if I really think I'm right.
Mm.
And I don't think I get defensive in any other spot. If Carly calls me out on something and we have a conflict that usually does lead to health, um, if I'm caught and I know I'm caught, I'm okay with that. And I'm cool with like kind of going down this route. But sometimes I get really defensive about it and be like, actually, no, like, I don't feel like I am because I think I'm right.
Mm.
And man, I think if you're in a conversation with someone who genuinely thinks they did the right thing and they start getting really defensive, at that point it might be time to kind of call the all right, I'm sorry you feel like I'm sorry that my actions in this conversation has led us to feel this way. That might be a time where you kind of pull that plug on that conversation for a different time. It's okay. Can we kind of reevaluate this? Maybe that's when step two comes in of like, hey, let's chat about this with someone else,
Mm.
or try to address it at a different time. Like Carly and I have had moments where we've had conversations about like little things, and sometimes those little things escalate to a lot bigger
Hmm.
moments. Dude, I can't remember what we were doing the other day. We were driving in the car and talking, and got into this argument. I literally think it was about like driving to Costco or something. The way we were going, dude, it erupted into something it didn't need to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, like this defensive side of me is like, I know I'm right,
Yeah.
but it's like we can't talk about this right now. Like we're not in a good state right now.
Mm.
And then when we're able to come back to it, it's like when we're level headed in a way, it's like, all right, you know, let's give it some time to breathe.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, and when someone starts to get charged with these emotions, one, I actually honestly think it's okay to kind of call that out.
Mm-hmm.
To be like, hey, like I'm noticing this conversation is making you feel very angry or very defensive. Um, can we continue this conversation, or do we need to put it at a different time? Because it might not get productive. Again, it might get sinful, and I don't know if you want to be a part of a conversation that's like that.
Oh yeah.
Um,
If there's anger, frustration that is just like coming out like like you're mad,
yeah,
you're ready to yell, fuming, walls are up. That conversation is going nowhere. If unless you're naturally and you know it, super gifted at bringing walls down, then maybe waiting is a good idea.
Yeah.
Let's continue this conversation another time. Can we set up a time to talk about it?
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know. And again, we're going to eventually get to this really helpful kind of acronym that you found, and you've kind of hit on and talked about it. But knowing your audience, who you're talking to, I think it matters. If you're in an argument with your spouse or you have conflict with your spouse, you can approach that so much differently
For sure.
than if you have conflict with a coworker. Because you're not as close to the coworker. So the rules of engagement, as you were saying, are just totally different.
Yeah.
And than with a spouse. Like, for the most part, with a spouse, you can probably safely bet that you can engage with it at any time, as long as emotions aren't high and you're able to speak clearly, not be pointing fingers and blaming and everything, and actually talk about the conflict and get to resolution. And you both know that at the end of the day, like, we're together
Yeah.
forever. So let's find a solution. Because if we don't, this is gonna be like a nightmare.
Absolutely.
And with like a coworker, you're like, I'll see him for 4 hours, 3 days a week.
Yeah.
Or I'll see her, every so often because we only share left one shift together. And so you start to think, okay, I can go about it different, and I have to be a little more mindful and tactful of how I approach this person that I don't engage with a lot. Still enough to where it's worth talking about because you work together. You're serving people together if you look at it that way.
Yeah.
And so maybe you put a little more thought into, hey, how should I approach this conversation with this person? Because I don't know them super well. So I don't know their personality super well. I don't know what's best for them. And so you take a little more care in the conversation than maybe you need to with a spouse. Because with a spouse, you might be able to be just, hey, I noticed you did this. Can you help me understand?
Yeah.
And that might not work with the coworker because it might come off as you're just like going at them. And maybe you need to sit down and tell the coworker, hey, I really appreciate how you do XYZ. I've noticed you do this. Can you help me understand? Or you don't clean up with me. I've noticed you don't help clean the floor with me on the closing shift. Would you be willing to help me clean and sweep and all that? I don't know, something like that.
Well,
Your approach is gonna matter.
And you can discover more
Yeah.
the more genuine and
Uh-huh.
caring you are about the person.
Yeah.
Something that I've told young adults to do, and it's usually come back very positive, is especially when because those spouse conversations, the people that you're close to, like family, you can bring stuff up a lot easier
Yeah.
because you've lived life with them, you know who they are.
Yeah.
But people that you don't, like if that's a friend that you're not on like an incredibly deep level with, or maybe you are, and you know this conversation is going to be tough. It's a conflict conversation. I always tell our young adults to just invite them out for coffee and buy it,
Yeah.
or invite them out for lunch and buy it.
Yeah.
Because what you're communicating there is I'm invested into this.
Yeah.
I am using my resources and my money, what is close to my heart, and I'm putting it in putting all my chips in on you right now.
Yeah.
Saying like, hey, I care about you to do this, and then having those conversations in a way where it's like, I just bought you lunch now.
Yeah,
Hear my
definitely.
thing.
Don't do that.
It's like, no, I really care about you. I care about you as a person, and here's something that's happened, and I want to talk about it because it has affected me in this way. Let's have this conversation.
Yeah.
And try to find some resolution here. I really don't know someone who, like, unless that person is completely full of pride and completely not self-aware. If you do that, I would probably say 9 times out of 10, that's going to work. And the conversation is going to go well. The reason Jesus puts these things in place is because not everyone is going to listen and be able to agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think that says way more about them than it does about even your way of confronting something. So then that's why it does come to other people at that point.
Yeah.
Other believers to say, hey, this actually, again, it's not just wrong, it's sin. Let's figure out how we can navigate this. But yeah, don't come full like sin, judgment, righteousness right out the gate.
Yeah.
That's kind of a towards the end of the conversation type thing.
Yeah.
Of like, hey, thank you for like I hear your intention. I totally get that. I just want to make sure that neither of us step into this again So I don't want either of us to be out of step with each other, but also with God.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Any
That's
thoughts
good.
on that?
Yeah, like conflict's just it's not an easy thing, and I truly believe if you go after it, you can see relationships thrive in ways you never imagined. And maybe even towards the end of that verse when it talks about, man, if nothing's working, then there is a like separation of ties, like you're not spending as much time together. Still love the person, but you're not gonna be putting yourself in that situation. The problem is, I think most of us will knee jerk to that one.
Yeah.
That we just default to they wronged
Ghosting.
me once,
Yep.
they're done. They're dead to me. This is game over. And that's not fair because imagine if someone did that to you.
It's not right either.
No, it's for the lack of a better term, it's cowardice.
I would say lazy.
Yeah.
That's
Like-
like the whole idea of ghosting someone just because
Yeah.
they didn't do what you wanted them to do,
Yeah,
or
to not
yeah.
go after conflict with the heart of resolution in like the first offense, second, you give people chances to not do that and just be done after one time. Like you just have this I don't trust people mentality. You're being a coward.
So I always give restaurants 2 times. If
All
a
right, now
restaurant sucks at the
you're
beginning,
you're taking it too far. I'm just kidding.
if a restaurant sucks the first time, I always go back.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
because who knows? Maybe it was bad that one day, and if I go again and it sucks again, then I won't go again.
Okay.
Some people go 3. Carly doesn't want to ever go again if it sucks. But I get it. If it sucks, it sucks.
One and done.
We just tried this new place called Bird Call
Okay.
in Santan Village. It was really good. It's
Where's
like,
it at?
Right by Living Spaces in Gilbert.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah,
It's
never
like
been.
a 50s, 70s, like modern retro vibe, and outside they have like a putt-putt green and everything.
Oh, that's
It's
nice.
pretty dope. So, but the reason I brought it up, I went there. We went there. I loved it. Carly went there. She didn't like it.
Oh.
We got sick, but I really liked it. So
She
I want
got
to go again,
sick?
but she doesn't want to go again.
Oh. What's it called? Bird call?
Bird Call.
Are there birds in there?
I mean,
Pictures of birds?
you eat chicken.
It's chicken.
It's like specialty chicken sandwiches, and they have like malts and drinks and all sorts of stuff.
Oh, so it's like southern chicken kind of vibe?
Very much so. Yeah.
Oh,
I got
okay.
like a Nashville hot chicken.
Okay, I was totally picturing more I don't know, just like Doughbird kind of vibe.
Oh no,
No.
Doughbird is pizza.
I know, but
I guess I didn't explain.
I know,
at
but the
all,
name
so
of
that-
it
That's my bad.
and the area it's in, I made the assumption
like
that it's
north
going
and-
to be a little more
That does make sense.
That vibe.
North and like Henry, I don't know what it's called.
Firebirds.
Cooper's Hawk.
Yeah, North Firebirds
It's
is
very
right
nice
there.
restaurants. Well,
Yeah.
Torchy's is over there now too.
But Torchy's is across the street, right?
No, it's actually. I mean, it's across the street.
Oh,
but it's,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
10
It is
feet
right
away.
there. So it's right next to Torchy's?
Yeah.
Cool.
You should try it.
So anyway, conflict. Yeah. Chicken. Sorry, I'm hungry.
I'm hungry too.
So
Thankfully, Tyler and I said
you
we're
talked
gonna
about
get burritos after this.
John Gordon, small ego, big
Yes.
mission. What other things did he lay out for conflict?
Yeah, I forget the title of his book, but you look him up. I think it was about how to have healthy conflict conversations or something like that. In his book, he lays out this model called STAR 3. STAR in the number 3. I'll kind of walk through them. Yeah, we have talked about pretty much all of them just naturally. S is small ego, big mission. The idea is the we is greater than the me. That us being okay is better than me necessarily getting everything off of my chest. Now, T is tell the truth.
Okay.
So you can't get there to full reconciliation unless you tell the truth.
Okay. Yeah.
Something
so you got to
that-
be honest.
Something that Bill says a lot here is that you can say the 90%, but not say the last 10%. And that's like really where it actually is.
Yeah, that last 10% is the truth.
Exactly. So tell the truth because that's the only way to get better.
Yeah.
So the idea, we over me, and then you have to tell the whole truth.
Okay.
So that's S and that's T. A is assuming and positive intent. That's what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Assuming positive intent in their actions, but
Mhm.
also in the conversation. assume positive intent in the conversation. Like, don't take anything personally.
'Kay.
You have to manage your energy. You have to manage your emotional state. Like, you can't take personal attacks on them, even if they're taking personal attacks on you. You have to have this mindset of like, okay, again, small ego, big mission.
Oh yeah.
Let's bring this whole thing back. And assuming positive intent in those moments is very hard.
Yeah.
I would say, especially if the conversation you're having is not with someone who is, if we're going to talk like organizational terms, subordinate or a peer. If you're having this conversation with someone that's above you in leadership, that's going to be really hard to do.
Yeah.
Is to be like, oh my gosh, this person's kind of like attacking me
Yeah.
right now.
Dude, that's interesting. You said even if they're taking attacks at you, you don't take attacks at them.
Yeah.
Dude, that's hard.
Dude, it's so hard. Well, it's the whole concept of what Jesus was saying. It's like if someone slaps you on one cheek, turn the other one.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like if someone asks you to walk a mile, walk two.
Yeah.
One, I don't like walking or running any kind of mile. So if I'm going to do it twice, like that's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But that the concept that actually plays
Yeah,
out
but
is
that's so good.
So hard.
Yeah, but it's so good and so true. Do not resort to that level.
Mm-mm.
It's not worth it. It's not
No.
it's not worth the compromise it does to your integrity.
Exactly. And again, remember, the first part of all of this is to glorify God.
Amen.
And so your actions should glorify God,
Yeah.
even if theirs aren't.
Yep.
But if they're a Christian, they should be attempting to do that. And so that's when you get into those moments of like, hey, I think this conversation might be going a certain way, and I
Mhm.
don't think this is right. But the R's, so star 3, the R is 3. So there's 3 R's. The first one is the rules of engagement.
'Kay.
So you're supposed to create specific rules as you engage in conversation.
Okay. With the person or in your head?
So this is more of a conversation when it comes to, this is more of an organizational thing.
Okay.
This it doesn't necessarily work when, I mean, you can do this in a personal conversation, but I think it would work more in an organizational state.
'Kay.
I guess you could. If I were to have a conversation with you and about conflict, I could come up with some rules of engagement, and I could be like, hey, Caleb, you know, it's something you said the other day kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Like, did you intend for that to happen? And you're like, no. It's like, okay. Then you can kind of lay out some steps of
Okay.
kind of like, here's how I kind of want this conversation to go, or like hopes that I have for it, and doing it in a really like gentle and loving way. Personally, that's tougher. But what John Gordon was kind of saying is you have to create specific rules for your organization. So if something happens, here's how we're going to go about it.
Okay.
Here's the time. Here's the when we're gonna have it. Like the idea of what's the resolution to this.
Yeah.
Kind of laying out very specific rules. So one of them that he laid out is there's not a second meeting. So when you have this kind of conversation, again, this organizationally, you can have a meeting. You lead an entire team of our youth team here.
Yeah.
You've got what, 8 people that are in
Uh-huh.
those 8 or 9 people in those meetings. What tends to happen a lot in I don't know, maybe the people listening to this are more perfect than our world, but what tends to happen after meetings is there's a second meeting.
Yeah. The
And that-
meeting after the meeting.
Yeah, the meeting after the meeting, that happens to be like, oh, that was so stupid. We should have done
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
then."
yeah.
Like that doesn't happen. And so in their organization, there's no meeting after the meeting. You either say it all or you don't say anything after.
Okay.
And so, but what you have to do is you have to create that space.
Ooh.
You have to create that safe space of being like, hey, whatever you say in here, it does matter because we're not going to have another meeting. Like, and that's on you. Don't go have another meeting. And if someone's having another meeting with you, tell them we're not going to do this. So you have to be able to create that space of like, everything in here that is said actually does matter, and we actually care about what you have to say because we're not going to take this and run with it outside of here.
Huh.
And so to be able to create that space where criticism does happen and what you think and what you want to say actually can come out. So that's the first one, these rules of engagement. And then the second one is respecting your team and the process. So respecting who's in the room, respecting the person that's there, and the process that it does take to actually find this reconciliation. So first is the rules of engagement. Things like there's no meeting after the meeting. Things like you better say it all. You can't say it after. 2, respecting your team in the process. And then the third R is relationships matter most.
Mm.
So at the end of this, your relationship matters the most.
That's good.
It doesn't matter, fully if you agree. And that's the cool part too. I don't think you have to be fully in agreement to be able to walk away reconciled,
Yeah.
to be walk away restored.
Yeah.
Because you and I could have an argument about something, and we could leave on no, I truly believe this. It's like, okay, but as long as our relationship is good, like that's what genuinely matters.
Yeah.
That kind of goes into like more opinion stuff, but
Yeah.
the conflict side of it, you have to be able to go in. Here's some rules of engagement from top down. Here's understanding that you need to respect the person in your team, and then third, realizing that your relationship with that person matters most.
Nice. So star 3.
Star 3. Get the book, John Gordon. It's great.
John Gordon. I looked up the title of the book if you're curious. It's called Difficult Conversations Don't Have to Be Difficult.
Yep.
A simple, smart way to make your relationships and team better.
Yep. It's really great. He also has a podcast with Craig Rochelle that went really, really well.
Oh, that's awesome.
If you want to listen to that one.
Yeah.
Craig Rochelle Leadership Podcast.
Sweet. Conflict ain't easy, but if we're going to live holy and healthy lives, then we're going to have to engage in it.
Yep.
Because you can't look at the pages of Scripture and see the life of Jesus and go, he did not engage in conflict.
Yeah.
It's there.
He lived in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yet, he handled it with grace,
Mm-hmm.
with so much just peace that didn't make sense, and love and care for the other people. And that's what you and I are called to do.
Exactly.
And so anything we can do to do that, to work on that, to grow in that, to become better at conflict for the hope and desire of resolution, not revolution, we're going to live more holy and healthy lives, and our relationships are going to reflect that.
Exactly.
That's wonderful.
Yep. Let me give a quick review. The 4-step process of this guy comes from this guy named Ken Sandy. He says, as we handle conflict, our job is to glorify God, get the log out of our own eye, gently restore each other, and then go and be reconciled. Glorify God, get the log out of your own eye, gently restore each other, and go and be reconciled.
Amen.
That'd be my prayer for everybody listening.
Let's go. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you.